Welcome back to Cryptos Are Us. I'm George. We're all George. So, welcome to another market open stream. We got more things to talk about every single day. There seems to be a lot more economic news, macro news, tariff news, retaliation news. But today, we got more Bitcoin news as well, and crypto news. Especially this next major obstacle that we need to tackle before the bull run. So let's talk about all these things and more. All right, let's do it. Let's do it, guys. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Look at this. We are at 81.7. Not bad. Not bad at all. We're a little bit lower than last night and a little bit lower than yesterday morning. But hey, look at the spike. This is definitely a V-shaped recovery in a big way. Definitely a good thing. And many alts jumped up yesterday. So we're still holding most of the gains from yesterday's announcement, which of course was the delay of the tariffs. And that's good. But today, we are starting out the day in the red. Yesterday, we had a monumental recovery day. The single most, I guess, the biggest green day, the biggest point gain day ever in history in U.S. markets, plus 3,000. So there's a little bit of a turnaround. Asia and Europe both were historically good. You could see Japan had a plus 9% day. Europe, across the board, 5-6%. But we are starting out in the red, minus 700, minus 500, a little profit taking. People are still a little worried about what's transpiring right now. Okay. Was this pause on purpose? Because it seems like everyone around Trump is saying, well, this was the plan all along to kind of like put a lot of pressure on everyone and then pause it for negotiation. Although there's been a lot of talk about this wasn't a negotiation. This was just a move to even out trade and even out tariffs. And then all of a sudden it got paused, except the tariff against China, which has increased, right? So now there's a little bit more that's coming out, and I talked about last night, and that is the bond market. The bond market got a little screwy, and even Trump's economic advisor says that the bond market added a little bit more urgency to the tariff decision. So the 10-year yield was going up in a big way. It was skyrocketing. And that's not something the U.S. wants. And it was happening because Japan and China were both dumping treasury bonds at a phenomenal rate. So this was in a way to kind of curb that. And it wasn't just them. Others were doing it too, but mostly it was from Japan and China. So now they're downplaying it. They're saying, well, this was still always the plan, but this added a little bit more urgency to it. But all the insiders are saying this is the actual real reason why it was done. And you can see the 10-year yield is still quite high. We were down below 4%. And actually, we want it to go down. We want it to go down a lot. We want all rates to come down, right? And if Powell cuts the Fed fund rate, that will help this go down even more. But with the stock market crashing, this is supposed to go down, down, and down, and down. With uncertainty, it's supposed to go down. It's not supposed to go up. It's not supposed to go up in a big way. And it's not good when it goes up. And it's still quite elevated. So many people are pointing to this being the major reason why Trump had to make a pause. So it's not quite over. Keep in mind, this is just a pause. And there's still a baseline 10% tariff on everything. So it's not like it's all removed. There's still a baseline. And plus, Mexico and Canada still has that baseline at 25%. So yeah, there's still tariff stuff. A lot of it. We did get inflation reading today, which is good. It came in way better than expected for March. Of course, this is pre-tariff. Inflation rate for everything went down. We went to 2.4%, and core inflation went down 2.8%. This is fantastic. We went from 3% down to sub 2%. This is where we want to be. This is where Fed Chair Powell wants to see inflation, right? However, again, this is pre-tariff. So if we had no tariffs and this is where inflation was, this will give ammunition for Powell to say, okay, now we're ready to cut. But because we still have all the tariff stuff, it's still up in the air. If you're looking at the percentages for next month, this is swinging wildly every day, but it has swung wildly downwards now. So now we're down to 20%, less than 20% for next month. And that's mostly due to yesterday's sudden rise, in everything. If we didn't have a big recovery day, this would be closer to 50%. But then because we did, it went down, which is fine because, the trade-off is, yeah, if we have to wait one more month, so be it. If our portfolios are looking better, I think we would all prefer that. But the end game is to get rates down. The end game is to get that Fed fund rate to get cut and cut many times. And now we're hearing that Trump wants to get Fed Chair Powell fired. He has no authority to fire him, but rumors are he's asking the Supreme Court to see if he can fire him. So he wants this to happen. He wants it to happen very, very, very quickly. Very quickly indeed. Ray Dalio, one of the famous Wall Street guys, is thinking that this trade war with China is not the way to do it. We should actually work with them and help appreciate their yuan, okay, against the dollar, and that will help them, and it will help us, because honestly, at this point in junction, we want the dollar value to go down, because the dollar going down will help bring in investments, foreign investments, money in. It'll help do a lot of what Trump wants, bring manufacturing back, bring jobs back, bring foreign investments back, right? Bring everything back to the United States. That's what Ray Dalio's proposing. But we're doing it, we're kind of doing the same thing through trade war. However, trade war is doing the opposite because the Chinese yuan is dropping like a rock. It has hit a 17-year low. So it's bad for them and sort of bad for us, but it's just much worse for China right now. So we'll see. What else is there? Amazon is saying that sellers will pass increased tariff costs to consumers. Well, that's a no-brainer. Of course, they're not going to be able to eat up all the tariff costs, 10% maybe, but if there's like additional 40% or additional 125% from China, keep in mind almost every product on Amazon is from China. So if things are now 125% more expensive, are sellers going to eat that cost? No, they're going to pass it on to the consumer, right? So in the near future, all of your items at Walmart, Target, Amazon, and anything else will be much more expensive. If you're in the U.S., a lot of you guys are not in the U.S., so it doesn't matter. A lot of you guys are not in the U.S., it doesn't matter. And this is funny too. Supposedly right before Liberation Day, Apple airlifted 600 tons of iPhones from India to beat Trump tariffs. 600 tons of iPhones. That's a lot of commercial planes. I don't know, not commercial planes. Whatever planes they use to haul things. iPhones are going to get very, very, very expensive in the near future. I'll just leave it at that. But Apple has enough margins to eat up the cost. Whether they do or not is another question. And lastly, the EU decides to put a halt on their countermeasures, the retaliation measures, against the United States for 90 days because Trump put 90 days pause. So that's not a surprise. That's not a surprise. All right. So with all that said, even with yesterday's historic turnaround, we did not see a positive inflow with the ETFs. That's actually surprising. I thought yesterday with a huge turnaround, we would see more inflows into the ETFs, but we still had an outflow, minus 27 million. Not as bad as the day before, but right now it's kind of to be expected. There are just a lot of fearful people. A lot of people that's very, very worried about recession, okay? If we're going to enter recession, it's going to be very, very bad, and people are loading up on cash right now. People are selling off everything, okay? Except those that truly understand Bitcoin and know what it's about. You know what? Even Charles Hoskinson is one of them. Even though he's the founder of Cardano, he sees Bitcoin surging above 250,000 still this year. He believes that the tariff situation right now is temporary. We will get past it, okay? And all of crypto will continue forward and do better later. He says about 6 to 12 months, and I agree, right? This is just a blip in the road for Bitcoin and crypto. And primarily his reasons are the landscape in the US is changing for the better, right? Even though macro conditions suck now, they won't suck forever. They will improve. Yesterday was a preview of what's to come. When things improve, the money will flow back in really, really quickly. That V-shaped recovery will come back really quickly. Right? But things are improving. The landscape in the US undoubtedly is changing for the better. We have a brand new SEC chair that is pro-crypto, has advised for many crypto projects in the past. We know that SEC has changed its tune about crypto projects all around, okay? Dismissed every single case. Now everything is not a security. Staking not a security. Exchanges are not a security. Ripple's not a security. Everything's not a security. We have a new crypto czar. We have a Bitcoin reserve. We have things that we've dreamt of before, right? Things are going to get much better once we get through a few things, right? Some of these obstacles, like the tariff situation right now. But there are a little bit more. And there are a lot of countries, okay? I primarily focus on the US right now, but I know a lot of you guys, 50% of the audience is not from the US. And a lot of you guys around the world. There's Bitcoin and crypto usage all around. China and Russia supposedly are already settling energy trades in Bitcoin because of all the sanctions against Russia, because they're not allowed to transact with USD. So they have to do it. And I don't think they want to really do it in yuan. They want to do it in rubles, but China doesn't want to deal with rubles. So, they're actually doing it with Bitcoin, supposedly. This is according to Avax, right? And there may be more of this in the future. There may be more countries like the BRICS nations or others that may be really pissed off at the US, right? And they may be turning to Bitcoin. Pakistan is another one. I'm Bitcoin mining, AI data centers to harness surplus energy. Bitcoin, see, here's the thing. Bitcoin is non-sovereign, right? Any country, friend or foe of the United States, it doesn't matter, or any country out there. Bitcoin is pure. It's neutral. And anyone can pick it up and use it. That's the beauty of it. No one is controlling it. There's no central authority. There's no central bank that's controlling it that can apply monetary policy. It's the most decentralized network on the planet. And there's no one trying to shut it down. You don't hear about Russia saying, we're going to shut down Bitcoin. You don't hear about China saying, we're going to try to shut down Bitcoin. You no longer hear politicians in the US saying, we're going to try to shut down Bitcoin, right? Those talks are over now. Just if you think about just that alone, countries have given up trying to shut down Bitcoin is already invaluable. There's nothing else on the planet that countries don't fight over to control or to shut down, except Bitcoin. It's like the only thing out there if you think about it. Social media platforms or new crypto platforms or financial products. Everyone has their own. Everyone bans everything. I mean, even look at TikTok. Something like TikTok is being banned, but Bitcoin is not. How amazing is that? No country is talking about banning Bitcoin anymore. Even the IMF, who hates Bitcoin, doesn't even talk about banning Bitcoin anymore. In fact, there's rumors they're talking about embracing Bitcoin. So yesterday, we did fill a CME gap at 84,000. But the good news is there's another CME gap at 85,000. You know, we always talk about filling these darned CME gaps. And generally speaking, they're on the downside. And we did fill one recently. I forgot, in the 70s. It was very low. Didn't think we were going to fill it, but we did. But we always tend to fill these. And we have one at 85. And I remember we still have one open in the 90s too. So bottom line is we will get there. We will get there. And it could be pretty darn soon. So CME gaps are not always to the downside. Sometimes they're to the upside too, right? And overall, this is what it's looking like since our top of $109,000, which was not too long ago. It's only been 3 months. And again, yesterday was a preview. If we get some catalysts, we get some good news, things will come back very, very quickly. Just yesterday alone, Bitcoin went up like $6,000 within minutes. If we went up $6,000 again, let's say today, we'll be closing in not too far away from $90,000. Go up $6,000 again. We're not that far off from $100,000. So it goes to show you how fast things can move, right? So this is why you don't want to give up on Bitcoin. And also, it shows how strong Bitcoin is. Despite the fact that we are holding where we are, man, if you look at where Bitcoin was in previous cycles, during scary times, during recession times, Bitcoin did not hold up well. Bitcoin crashed like it was nothing. There was no backbone to Bitcoin back in the day. Just look at COVID time. People didn't really believe that it was a store of value at all. Bitcoin fell like 70% within a matter of like 3 days when COVID shutdown happened. It went from $10,000 down to $3,000 in like 2 days. Um, just think about that, right? We were below 4,000. We were at 3,000 something that very day, March of 2020. I still remember it vividly. It was a crazy time, but Bitcoin was in a 3,000 range. Okay, we're nowhere close to that. It shows you how far we have come, how now we are actually fulfilling Satoshi's vision of being a true store value, right? And one that everyone wants to accumulate. And it's just really amazing. All right. So outside of Bitcoin, there are still a lot of alts that are amazing, but they're not as amazing as Bitcoin. Okay, let's be honest. We have this other company called Janover. They're in the commercial real estate business. And you know what? They want to be like the MicroStrategy of Solana, I guess. So they just acquired $5 million Solana. And, you know, they're going to keep adding to their new digital asset treasury. Interesting. And they just raised $42 million. And they're going to keep on adding more and more crypto. So, see, Michael Saylor, he started something, right? He kicked off something. He made it acceptable and cool to be a public trade company and hold crypto. So now we're seeing it more and more and more and more. And by the way, Fidelity, they have submitted a Solana ETF and the SEC acknowledges. It's just a matter of time. We're going to get another crypto spot ETF. Matter of time. And this actually came out just minutes ago too. Avax is listing an Avax ETF. So that may be coming soon. And then Dogecoin will be getting theirs. I mean, it's just a matter of time before we get one. And today, well, I don't know if it's today, but we're going to get Ethereum spot ETF options too. So we're getting more and more derivatives coming out. So it'll be quite interesting. Quite interesting moving forward with these. All right. That's pretty much it. So today, not so good for U.S. market. Looks like Trump has tariff deal offers on the table from around 15 countries. That's a little bit less than what he said yesterday, like 70 countries or 80 countries. Let's see. MicroStrategy is down 4%. I think they were up like 15% yesterday or something. Tesla down 5%, Coinbase down 3%. So we're losing a lot of gains. One question is, I don't know how Apple is doing so well. It's very obvious that Apple is going to suffer very badly, being that almost 100% of their production is in China, and maybe some of it is in other countries, but almost all of it is in China. They are going to get tariffed 125%. After the 600 tons of iPhones is gone, it's going to be very, very, very expensive for them to sell iPhones. So I don't know how Wall Street does not see that. That's the biggest question I have right now. Is like why Apple is not dumping a lot more than it is. Anyways, that's it. All right, let's do some Q&A. Rightis says, hey, we had good CPI readings. We had a bad reaction. What's up? No, I mean, right now it's all about tariffs. Okay. It's dominating the Wall Street minds right now. This definitely was good. This helps the case for a rate cut. However, that percentage is still quite low. Hey, it went up a little bit, 21%, but it was much higher before yesterday's rally. Scrolling up, Scott Sumrail, new member, welcome. Camera Wall said, George, you used to talk about 50, 25, 25, Bitcoin 50%, ETH 25%, large cap 25%. Well, I did talk about 50, 25, 25, but you got that wrong. 50% Bitcoin, 25% large caps, 25% everything else. ETH was definitely not 25%. Although you could buy 25% ETH as large caps, but it was 50, 25, 25. And yes, I still think that's fine. Although these days it would seem a lot better strategy to go much heavier into Bitcoin. So, but at least that's a baseline. At least 50% in Bitcoin and 25% in big caps, anything, 10 billion or above. And then everything else, mid caps, small caps, can make up the rest of your portfolio. %, Pepe, 10% Bitcoin. There was a period last year where that makeup would have done really awesome, but now not so much. H. Huey says, I don't want to be negative, but we're definitely going down more. We're trying to force quantitative easing, so we need to crash more to get it. I agree with you. I've said this for a while. Now, people don't actually believe it, but, I think one of the intended goals was to cause chaos, cause market crash, to force the 10-year yield to go down, and to force Powell's hand to cut the Fed fund rate. A lot of people don't believe in that theory, but I think there's a lot to it. Now, obviously, that may not be the only goal. The other goals could actually be what Trump is thinking, is to balance out the trade, to get countries to negotiate and maybe put some pressure on China and do a lot of the other stuff, right? But I do think one of the big things that they intended was to drop the 10-year yield. And the way to do it very quickly was to cause market chaos. I mean, Scott Bessent has said that before, to drop the 10-year yield. But the 10-year yield started skyrocketing recently, okay, because Japan and China started dumping our treasury bonds. And that completely went against what we were trying to do, or what they were trying to do. You could see it was working. We were below 4%, and then all of a sudden we shot back up. That's horrible. And for you guys that are wondering, well, why do we want the 10-year yield to go down? Because we need to borrow money again as a country. And if we need to borrow money, we want to borrow money at a lower interest rate than a higher interest rate. That 0.3% may not sound like a lot, but that adds up to hundreds of billions of dollars considering how much we need to borrow. We have $6 to $10 trillion worth of bonds maturing in the next year. So we have to issue $6 to $10 trillion of bonds in the next year. So will we want to issue them at a 4% interest or a 4.3% interest? Obviously, the lower the better. So obviously, we want that number to be much lower. Like, for example, at this point, 3.64%. So that in itself will save the country hundreds of billions of dollars and trillions over the next 10 years. So that's the reason why we want the 10-year yield to go down in a big way. And having the Fed fund rate cut also helps with this. The 10-year yield doesn't necessarily align with the Fed fund rate, but it's swayed a lot also by it too. And another reason why Another reason why I think this pause needed to be done was because not only the rates were going up, but when you have massive dumping of treasury bonds, it decreases the confidence in bonds altogether, and that's not what we want. Because if we're issuing new bonds in order to raise money, to borrow money, you don't want to do it when other countries are trying to sell it. It's counterintuitive. Paul's asking, why are you not holding Dogecoin despite upcoming ETF? Because I think there are better buys. London Link says, we haven't had an all season yet. Nothing to do with dilution. Yeah, I think you're right. Even though we have millions of alts, I think the good ones will still do well. The bad ones or mid-tier ones probably will not do well due to dilution, but the good ones, they're just not doing well because the market downturn right now. That's really what it comes down to. Yeah, I'm not trying to shit on Dogecoin. A lot of people do like Doge. There's nothing wrong with it. I just think there's better plays. But Doge is still holding really well. It's still within top 15. No, in fact, it's better than top 15. It's top 10. So there's nothing wrong with it, but I like others better. Man, we're giving up a lot of gains. You know what sucks about going down is you only need to go down half of what you go up to give up all gains. So yesterday, Dow went up 3,000 points, right? So today, you only need to go down 1,500 to kind of like wipe that out. I don't know if that math is mathing, but usually generally when you go down, it just like wipes things out way faster than going upwards. That's what she said. Chit chat. BNB holds up its price surprisingly well. BNB and Tron, I would say, but Tron I don't trust at all. There's shenanigans going on with Tron. BNB, yeah, to some extent probably some shenanigans going on with BNB as well. But yeah, but they, on the upside too, BNB doesn't really do well as its peers also. So that could explain it. Trump acknowledged he could cause a recession, but just didn't want a depression. Well, yeah, obviously. We had a depression, that would that would be really, really bad. Recession is not good either. Okay, let's not kid ourselves. No one wants a recession. We were not, we avoided a recession last year when we started getting all the rate cuts. Okay, that kind of turned things around. So it's not like we want a recession now. But hopefully we can avoid this sooner than later. And we definitely don't want a depression. Jesus is asking, or Jesus follower, or Jesus follower, do you like Cosmos? I used to like Cosmos a lot. And then I realized their inflationary design is really bad. I mean, that's why they give out like 13, 14% staking rewards, because they're very, very inflationary. And all the coins out of their ecosystem does not help them at all. Like Sui, Akash, Say, Osmosis. It doesn't help the Atom coin at all in any way. They've designed a layer 0 where each layer 1 doesn't contribute to the layer 0 at all. So that made me more neutral on the idea, on the project, I should say. Nicholas says 70, 20, 10 is even better, as Bitcoin should outperform. You know what? I think this cycle, definitely right. Previous cycles, 50, 25, 25 has worked out very well. This cycle, Bitcoin has definitely been the greatest performer by far, because we haven't had altcoin season. And maybe you can make the argument, even when we do, most of the alts will not do as well as previous alts in the altcoin season. So this time around, Bitcoin maxis are laughing all the way to the bank because they've been right. Bitcoin has been outperforming everything so far. So like 70, 20, 10 portfolio, or even 100, 0, 0 would be better in performance right now. But again, we haven't had that true altcoin season yet. And we're not going to get that until the tail end of the market, until the bull market, I should say. Too broke for crypto asked George, will tax cuts give us a boost? We should have an announcement today. Where do you hear that from? We're not going to get no tax cuts. That's the first I'm hearing about that. Look at this headline right here. 23-year-old makes $85,000 a year and lives on Martha's Vineyard year round. I really like how calm and relaxed my life is. I'm not trying to shit on this, but is this supposed to be impressive? I mean, yes, she's young at 23 years old, but I'm sure a lot of 23-year-olds make 85,000 or six figures. Is this supposed to say like, you know, her life is so good because she lives on Martha's Vineyard and she makes 85,000 a year? I don't even get the point of this headline. I don't know. Maybe I'm being overly harsh, but that just doesn't sound like an impressive headline to me. Which 23-year-old earns 100K a year? What world do you live in? A lot now. Even when I was coming out of college, a lot of people did. And that was like 20 years ago, man. So it depends on what profession you're in. A lot of people in IT make well into that figure. You could, you know, at the beginning of the show, I was asking how many people had 3D printers. You could have an Etsy store and sell 3D printed stuff a year. I mean, you could just do that and make well into six figures a year. A lot of people have print farms that do that. I mean, I don't know. I know a lot of people, pharmacists, nurses, engineers, certainly IT people, programmers, security analysts. Camera wall, 5 printers. Hey, you know what? I'm getting started with 3D printing. I really want to know, those of you guys that have like small print farms, how do you guys figure out what to print to make money? Like, it seems like the market's so saturated. Everyone's copying each other. I really want to know like how you guys find your products, or do you create your own and start selling them? Because I'm really interested. I'm just doing it for fun. I'm not trying to like make millions off of it, but you know, I just think it's cool because I have a 3D printer. I'm just printing stuff all the time. C. Barbuska. My son was a pilot 21 years. So yes, 23-year-olds can make way over 100. Yeah, pilots do. I mean, a lot of professions do. Accountants do. Food vendors. And I really think like trade workers too, like plumbers, electricians, they're so in demand now. Um, I think they easily make over the six figures a year. I think as we move forward, everyone becomes, you know, so white collared. Like plumbers and electricians are going to be in so high demand over the next 20 years. All right, guys. Well, today, not as good as yesterday. Of course, there's more fear once again. Even though we got some good inflation reading. But overall, guys, we got some obstacles, okay? But things are changing in a good way. And once things turn around, they will turn around really, really quickly. And that's why you want to stay in the game, stay focused, and not panic. All right, have a good one. Smash the like, subscribe to the channel. Take care, guys.